Okay. Also, we have to do a commercial today.
Oh, that's right. You want to do that beginning, middle, or end?
I'll do it somewhere in the middle. We'll roll into it. So, I'll fuck it up. We'll just laugh and just keep doing it. So, so we'll figure it out. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, tales from the ball field, degraded pistol skills, pistol brace amnesty, and the skinny on Fat Leonard. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Danny and Marky, and this is episode 270 of the John1911 Podcast. We're getting back to somewhat of a normal schedule. Today is Tuesday, September 7th at 10:42 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And how have you been, Danny?
Busy, wrapping up the season. Got another week or two to go, and then it's done. I've been going at this since March, so I'm ready for it.
Yeah, the end of your baseball. So is it softball or baseball? What is it you actually coach?
I do. I don't coach. I umpire.
I'm sorry, umpire.
I do both. I do both.
So do you ever see those? Do you ever umpire? Have you ever seen the female pitchers that throw that underhand ball that's like 70 or 80 miles an hour?
Many times. I do college girls.
Oh my God. Like I remember the first time I ever saw that, I was like, holy shit.
And the mound's a lot shorter. It's a lot of shorter distance, so the reaction time of these girls is unbelievable. But, a little side note here to that, I could be doing a men's college game or I could be doing a girls' college game. The mouths and the profanities on the girls' side are 1,000 times worse than any guy's team.
Oh,
you should hear those women.
Oh, I have no doubt. Women are vicious.
Oh, it's beyond that. Like if a certain girl comes up to bat or something, she is everything. I mean, you would not believe the mouths of these women. Oh my God.
Are they worse than a 14-year-old boys with your mom's box? We got some feedback on that joke.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Looking for your glove?
Yeah. It wasn't look like your mom's box. It's like, my God. Of course, you have to be so. Okay, if you are, is there this kind of with umpires? Is there this kind of, I don't know, professional decorum or?
Oh yes, it's very simple. On a call, you lie, I'll swear to it.
Okay. So,
is that what you were looking for?
No, I was actually more like, we're gonna. Oh yeah, some baseball dad's gonna like, umpire stole the game from my son.
So
40, some 19 or 20-year-old college girl, who's they're shit talking each other, and it's hilarious. Do you have to be as reserved as you are with the 14-year-olds, or because they're adults?
I tell them, put a lid on it, and the last thing you want to do is do a point and throw somebody on unsportsmanlike. They don't like that. So it's like I have bad hearing, so I don't hear a lot, and it's a blessing at times. But you let a lot go. But I mean, when it gets personal, that's when you step in.
Okay.
They could chew and make the remarks all they want, but when it gets personal and really vindictive, then you have to, step in and do it. It's mostly just how do I want to say that? I don't even want to say goodwill banter. It's trying to mind fuck the other team is what they're doing.
So with the lesbian softball players, if some girls like your mama wears combat boots, and then the other girl's like, so your girlfriend wears combat boots. I mean, you just pretend like you didn't hear that, or is it?
No, that they don't say that. Like some. They try to wear as tight as fitting pants as they can. And the best one I ever heard is one girl, she's coming up to bat, and she's got really, really tight baseball pants on. Well, two girls on the other team said, "Look, somebody hit her between the legs with a meat cleaver."
Oh my God!
You can't make this stuff up.
So okay, all right. So let me ask this question. So I've never been around women's softball players. So are there
Yes,
there
there
as
are.
many of them?
Yes, there are.
Okay, so
Yes, there are.
so
Are
there's
you trying to say? Are you trying to say butchettes?
okay. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, are
I
there a
know
lot?
what you're driving at, and yes.
Are there a lot of Portia de Rossi haircuts? Ellen DeGeneres' girlfriend. I mean, is that all true?
Well, let's just say there's a whole lot of big girls driving small cars.
Stop it.
You get the analogy, don't you?
Oh my God! Yeah. Oh my God! Yeah, we're like 4 minutes in, so it's and the comments are coming.
Well, yeah, remember, I've been an umpire for 48 years. There's nothing I haven't seen or heard yet. I mean, you hear the others, hey, we're donating to the blind, when you're calling balls and strikes or whatever. But I mean, I like the off the wall stuff. That's what I realize. If I ever hear a new chew towards me, I love it.
Something, yeah, because you hear the same shit all the time. You like hearing
Oh
some new
God,
material.
Mostly though, what I've heard out of disgruntled parents and coaches is this for the last 48 years. You'll never ump here again. I sign up for that school when they tell me.
Really? That's the big throwdown. You'll never ump here again.
Oh my God! From t-ball all the way to college, parents and coaches screaming at you. Oh, you'll never work here again. You'll never ump here again. Then when I see it on a sign-up sheet, I'll take it. And I'm watching the guy mainline and Maylocks as I walk in.
God almighty. Like, I mean, I know you hear stories about how aggressive the parents can be, but
They are.
I don't.
Well, I told you about my record for ejections in a game, didn't I?
I don't think you've told me on pod. Have we?
Okay. One game, it got so bad with the parents complaining, I threw out 2 coaches, 3 parents, and the concession lady.
You threw out. Are you serious? You threw out the concession.
Yes, and the guy in the announcer's booth was on thin ice.
Holy shit!
I got them all.
Well,
needless to say, no hot dog for Danny after that
That might be the title of the pod. No hot dog for Danny. Oh my God.
Yeah, I could tell you stories that let's just say don't have anything to drink or in your mouth when I tell you because you'll spit it out.
Well, for the listeners that get on our social media that like to start trouble, we don't really have too many of them anymore. But I mean, you do have the band hammer. I mean, you have the ability to call balls and strikes in the comments section.
I know. So anyway, what'd you think of Mrs. Danny tooling around in the new convertible?
Is that a convertible? I have to look. Look at the picture again.
No,
it's not. Yeah.
I don't know if the roof removes or not. Maybe
I don't think that's a convertible.
No, it's a hardtop. You're right.
Yeah, it's a hardtop. What does Lamborghini call their? Is it a? Let me see if it comes off. I'm looking at it now. I don't think that a Lamborghini tends to call those cars with the top comes off. They call them roadsters. That's what they used to call them in the '90s. Coupes and roadsters. And I don't think this car has a roadster top on it. That's a cool picture. Not. I mean, you should let me. No. You should let me see. Look. He's an umpire. I haven't even asked the question. Everybody's like, no. And I said the question was going to be, you should let me post this, and he's like, no. So
Mrs. Danny, no.
Yeah. Well, I could cover her face. I mean, look, it's just a normal car sitting out in front of an Ace
A normal
Hardware.
car. You're right. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Why is it we parked as far away and away from everybody, but yet by the time we came out from dinner, there were still 1,000 vacant places, but there were cars parked on each side of it? Why?
Because people want to look at the car. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever owned an exotic car. I know your son has. And, the thing is, like, there's two types of higher end cars. And this is not an unknown conversation in certain, I'd say social circles. And so, like a car like this Lamborghini car that we can't post pictures of. I mean, people, it's not just parking it in the park. You park it out the end of the parking lot, and then people come out and do whatever because then they want to park next to it. Then you end up you're afraid you're going to bump your doors. But you'll have people when you're driving cars like that down the road. They're spending more time looking at your car than they are the road, and so you're more likely to have cars around you involved in accidents. This is a real thing.
I'm sure it is.
And it becomes dangerous because then, somebody's looking at you. They're not looking ahead. If you're next to them, and all of a sudden they have to hit the brakes, and if they swerve, they might end up swerving into you, and you get these weird bullshit low speed, moderate speed accidents around your car. People spending more time trying to look
believe that.
Yeah, and they're swerving because they're trying to get their phone out or do whatever. But dude, I'll tell you what, this is a true story. This is in the 90s, and I was test driving a Lamborghini at a dealership, and with this with the car salesman. Again, I still stipulate it's a much more pleasant to buy a Lamborghini than it ever was to buy a tractor. And it's true.
I was going to bring that up later.
That is not exaggeration. And, I'm driving this car. It's a Diablo SV. And, we're going down the road. And, I'm kind of like a little nervous. It's like I don't want to crash the thing doing whatever. And, I'm actually in the slow lane. And I'm not, I'm just trying to get the feel of the car. Like I'm like, oh God, what if I grind the gears in front of this guy? You know what I mean? Like I'm driving, it's a manual. And literally on cue, I'm in the slow lane. In the high-speed lane, this car pulls up next to us, slows down, and it's got all these young girls in it waving, trying to get our attention. And it literally could have been, it was so well timed, you would have almost thought that the Lamborghini dealership said, okay, get the cute girls ready, so when he takes the car out for a drive, cute girls come up and start waving at the guy. And it was like, and it was, and they were spending more time looking at me in this car than they were because even the driver's looking over, and it was fine. It was safe. They weren't really weaving or anything that, why, cute girls, go tooling away, but that happens everywhere. And
yeah, I'm sure if I ever drove it, they'd be saying, there's sugar daddy, but nah.
in California, you'd just be normal. You know what I mean?
They're the norm.
Yeah, like what is it? Leonardo DiCaprio, he's 47. I'm 51, and he just broke up with his girlfriend of a couple years. She just turned 25, and apparently the news is saying he's never dated a woman over the age of 25. And like they list all of these women that, these models or actresses, because not that I don't pay that much attention to Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's like there's, oh my God, it could be 24 women, and every single one of them, bam, before they hit 25, dude, he's out. And it's becoming a known thing. And you see that all the time, out there, like just, where it's like, oh, it's my uncle. It's like, yeah, sure. Okay, sweetheart, like I remember.
Well, speaking about the entertainment, go ahead.
No, go. You're fine.
Go ahead.
Hit me with it. Well, I saw one.
I was just going to bring up.
Go ahead. I think we have a delay. Go ahead.
I was just going to bring. Okay, I'm sorry. I I was just going to bring up, since you were in the entertainment industry, I'm pretty heartbroken because Justin Bieber canceled parts of his tour due to health issues. And
Well,
darn it, I was going to go wait in line for tickets.
you gotta, I mean, look, hey, look. Speaking of cute girls, his wife's pretty cute. But did you see what was wrong with him?
No, I did not.
Like, this happened, I guess, over the summer. Look, the only reason I would even know who any of this is because I'll go to TMZ and I'll just hit the TMZ website real quick. And
I thought you wanted me to pick you up a ticket also.
No. And and I hate to say this, but as I'm getting older, like there'll be stories on TMZ, and I'm literally knowing less and less and less of these people because I don't really consume a lot of the movies and stuff. But I guess like he's a young. I mean, he's been around forever, but he's been Justin Bieber's been singing since he was like 13 or 8 or 10 or something. So I don't think he's even 30 now, but like he had, I don't know what, it wasn't Bell's palsy, but it was another palsy where half his face was paralyzed. Was it Guillain-Barré? Yeah, that's what it was. And I guess it's the more serious of them.
Yes, it is. I've known somebody that had it.
Yeah, and I guess it cured it, but then I guess, I don't know, maybe he's still having some issues, and and look, I'm not. Look, this is the John1911 podcast. I don't know anything that I don't know. Like, if I'm not saying there's like, oh, the word, like Donald Trump, people are saying it. Like no one's saying this. I'm just saying it. I notice as I get older and wiser, a lot of these younger Hollywood people or celebrities, if they're having issues, I feel like it might be covering up drug use or more serious activities. You know what I mean? It's like, it's your friend that got Guillain-Barré syndrome or Bear syndrome. How old was that person when they got that?
48.
48.
And he pretty much lost control of his hands. He could walk, albeit with a cane, a little bit, but he would just get winded, and it was terrible because he was in really good shape. And then to see him a couple months later, it was pretty devastating.
Did he ever recover from it?
No.
Holy shit.
No. The answer is a staunch no.
That that might be more what's going on. There might be more. The Justin Bieber thing. Okay, to back up off of Bieber, but to kind of talk about this a little bit, like you and I, we trade in the company group chat. Danny and I we send links and stories to each other all the time. And I don't know, maybe it's a month or two ago, I sent you a link on a story about a girl. I can't say her name, Cara Delevingne, and they're following all these Hollywood paparazzi are following Cara Delevingne around a few months ago around Los Angeles, and she's not fixed. I guess she used to be a model or maybe considered a supermodel. I don't even understand. So, she looks a little strung out to me, and it's like her behavior's a little weird in the pictures, but the whole story that they're writing and talking about her, it's none of it. Like, they're not talking about, is this girl on dope? Is this girl strung out? They're not saying any of that. They're just following this girl around. And I sent a story to you because it was like, this is an example of a story in media that is so obvious where they're writing the story, but they're not actually telling it. They're burying the lead. They're not telling you what the real story is. The real story is that the word is out about this girl, and they think she's headed for a fall, and she's gonna, she's strung out on something or having mental breakdowns, and they're waiting for her to go crazy or to, have a total OD or something. But they can't say that, so they have to they're randomly following this girl, this dirty ass girl walking around, and trying to see if they can't get something salacious. Well, I brought that up to bring this up. yesterday or the day before, this Cara Delvine girl, she's there. There's video of her now, like, private airplane on an airport, and she gets on a plane. I think they may have kicked her off of the plane. This girl, you're watching this girl walk around, and like she looks like she's on crack. I mean, I don't know what she's on, but she's got the jittery. She's jittery and itchy, and she's crazy. And it's like, again, they're doing a story where they're like, is Cara Delvine having a health crisis? She's doesn't look like she's doing well. And it's obvious to me, I'm looking at her, it's like she looks like a crackhead from the 1980s.
Either that or she knows where Fat Leonard's at.
Yeah, she knows where Fat Leonard's at. Oh my God, I love that story. Fat Leonard.
I enjoyed that also.
Well, okay, you tell the listener who Fat Leonard is. I mean, because
no, you tell it. You're much better at it than I, because I'll laugh.
Okay, so there's I didn't follow the latest. I just sent you the links. Like Fat Leonard.
That's what I read.
And so Fat Leonard, if you in the military and Navy defense circles, Fat Leonard, and that's literally what he called himself. Like, that people call him, oh, you mean Fat Leonard? Like, if they didn't call him that behind his back. He was, I don't know if he was based in the Philippines or in Singapore at the time. But what he did is he had a business, and they were I'm overstating what this is. I'm not going to say he had a dry dock, but basically he had, a
black market.
No, well, wait, hold on. I want to see, because he had a real business. Here's the real business. He had a ship dry dock service, and so he would he had contracts with Navy ships and with the U.S. Navy to service small to medium-sized warships in the Pacific. So, like a frigate. I don't think he ever could do a thing. He may not even be able to do a thing as large as a cruiser, but definitely nothing. No aircraft carriers, but he could do frigates, and maybe he could do a cruiser. And so what would happen is, ships would be moving around, and commanders would be like, hey, ships rotate. There's service period. There's downtime, short time, where they're doing a bunch of repairs, and there's workups where the crew is together and they're doing workups to get ready to deploy. And then ships, it usually takes 3 ships if you want to have a destroyer sailing around somewhere, it takes 3 destroyers to maintain a constant presence. This is the general rule for Navy warships. And so if there's a destroyer out there already sailing around, okay, there's a second destroyer that is in workups, getting ready to come online when that destroyer rotates in, and then that destroyer will rotate in for shore duty, and then the ship goes in for repairs. The crew goes to training schools or updates, and they need to dry dock the ship. They can do major upgrades, and it takes 3 to run 1. Okay, and this is where a lot of people don't understand. If you have a 12 carrier Navy, you really can you can do 4 carriers at sea at a time. If you surge them, you may hear these phrases like, "Well, we're surging," because of whatever. You're pulling ships out of their rotations and you're surging them, and you're let's short shift some of these updates, some of the maintenance, and let's get them out there because there's something going on. We need extra firepower. Well, you pay for that later. Fat Leonard ran one of these forward deployed kind of low key service places, and so what he would do is he would make friends with flag officers and ship commanders, and more like squadron commanders, and take them out to fancy dinners, hook them up with prostitutes, wouldn't give them money, but he would hey, you want some, hey, you want to go see Mariah Carey perform in Seoul, South Korea at the whatever? I have tickets for Mariah Carey's world tour. Take your wife. And so what would happen is, conveniently for years, Fat Leonard's, he's got a little downtime in one of his, quote, dry docks. That'd be what I call it. And, conveniently, a frigate would be like, we need some dry dock time or some service time into Singapore. And they'd pull the ship in. And the Navy started to figure this out, and it was a huge investigation. A bunch of officers got jammed up on and their careers ended, probably their marriages. And what really was scandalous about it was Fat Leonard was directly affecting deployed ships' rotations. And you could even make an argument he was affecting the Navy's ability to plan on having ships available. Like, hey, we're going to run a bunch of ships through the Taiwan Straits. Fuck, one of them's at Fat Leonard's dry dock. And so Fat Leonard got arrested. Well, Fat Leonard has been on house arrest. And apparently over the weekend, Fat Leonard ding-donged and ditched. And do they think he's in Mexico?
From what I read, they're saying South Mexico to Central America somewhere where they're thinking.
Yeah, and it's like I guess
another article I seen.
Well, I guess he stopped showing up to I don't know, probation or whatever it was, and so eventually like Naval Criminal Justice they sent, or maybe it was U.S. Marshals, I don't know, but they they send people over and they're knocking on the door. He's not answering the door. I guess they quote, we're going to do a welfare check, and they somehow make entry, and basically the house is empty. They find the ankle monitor, like the ankle monitor's in the house. So somehow he'd gotten his ankle monitor off, and they weren't alerted that he'd gotten it off. And then they're talking to the neighbors, and the neighbors are all like, yeah, there have been moving trucks here like for a few weeks, like, doing stuff, whatever. And, we didn't think a whole lot about it because we know old Fat Leonard's going to go to prison. So we figured he was settling his affairs. And so all of a sudden now the U.S. government's like, holy fuck, Fat Leonard's gone, and he may have a multi-week head start on us.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, holy shit. So, yeah, I mean, not that if you're not, invested in the Navy or, that kind of stuff, most people probably don't even care about that.
Speaking about getting in trouble with prostitutes, did you see the story that came out with Sheriff Grady Judd? He didn't get in trouble down in Florida about the deputy police chief that they arrested from Georgia. Did you happen to see that?
I saw a police blotter blurb from one of the police industry things. I think it was this morning, and it's like how to wreck your career, and it had his official bio picture. And the guy had I don't know what department he's with. He's got 2 stars.
Right. So, he's a deputy chief out of a pretty big city.
And I hate the star. I hate the stars. The police chief and the stars thing pisses me off. So I was like, or whatever. And so then there's a mugshot of him. I guess he got jammed up by some local. So it wasn't in his own city. Was he traveling or something?
He was at some kind of a police convention for undercover work or whatever it was. So under the covers work. Yeah, paid for it. Wait a minute, it gets better. He didn't bother to take the regular marked department vehicle. He took their deep cover drug vehicle, so figured nobody could run the plates. So he goes there, and somehow they got him for 2 nights in a row or something. And
wait a minute. What? So so the Vice Squad detected him picking up hookers on one night and let him get away with it. He came back a second night.
Well, no, the first night he got bamboozled. He's online with a hooker, and she says, "Hey, go down to the local, convenience store and pick up one of those Visa gift cards, okay, and put $200 on it so I know you're legit." So the guy does it, and she says, "Well, I don't know if this is legit. This is all online. Send me a photo of it." He sent her a photo, and she got the number. There went that money. Yeah, that was the first night. So the second night, he's trying it again with a different one, but
Fuck.
this one is the police operative. She's an officer that was posing as a prostitute.
And this was online, not on street corners. So this is the online stuff.
I, from what I
Yeah.
understand, the second night was in person when he went to meet her. And
If they do eventually. Hey, look, Danny, I know you pay, but hiring hookers online eventually it has to be in real life. I would assume.
yeah, I would think. I don't. I stay out of that.
And if you hire a hooker online and you never actually meet the hooker, I don't think it's a hooker. I think it's porn. I don't think unless you actually meet. I mean, I'm not a wordsmith, but I'm thinking, that's the difference between hooker and porn.
Well, he was supposed to meet the police operative at a house or something. So he's sitting outside there, and she says, "So hey, so I know it's you. Bring me a 6-pack of White Claw. That's some alcoholic stuff, I guess." And whatever you're drinking. Sure enough, here he pulls up in the unmarked city car with the White Claw and his beer, waiting to go to the convention.
And all they're doing is establishing the bounds of the contract, that it's not a mistake. Wait a minute. If you thought you were there for whatever, if you were meeting a real estate agent, why'd you go get White Claw? And why would the real estate agent tell you to go get White Claw? And you went and got the White Claw. Like, you weren't there. You weren't. They're boxing in the alibis when they do stuff like this.
Right. When you get brand specific, then you know you're done.
White Claw. Well, hey, look, in his defense, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been around bars or young girls, but I would think White Claw was like, oh, a little white girl drink. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I don't think you see a lot of like Crips and Bloods throwing down the White Claw. I'm just saying,
That's I guess White Claw's the Bartles and James of the 80s now. Who knows?
It could be. So he's has he been fired yet?
He's on administrative leave pending investigation.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of the officers from the Fat Leonard investigation. A lot of them.
But here's the killer. He's a 30-year veteran.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. He's got 2 stars. I mean, he's well over 20. I mean, he could just retire.
I'm sure he's just going to pull the plug.
Yeah, I just.
Well, it depends on what his wife leaves him with.
Yeah.
He might be in a happy greeter at Walmart. You never know.
Oh my God. Hey, Cheif. I said, hey, welcome to Walmart. God, I mean, just wrecking your life. Just like.
Yeah, it is.
And, these guys traveling, they get on the internet, and it's like, I mean, just don't even,
Or do you know what I'm thinking? Yeah. Maybe it was a dumb mistake. He wrecked his life and all the other stuff. But I think some of these chiefs and deputy chiefs, they get the attitude where they can't be touched, and they feel that they can just get away with everything or whatever. I think they're one step away from reality, maybe.
You know what? That is 100% true. But here's the fundamental mistake that this officer has made. So he's an assistant chief or deputy chief. I guess he's a SO, sheriff's office. It looked like maybe.
I didn't know what it was.
But he's out of town. He's out of town, right? He's not where he's
on official business.
Yeah, no, but he's out of town. He's not in the city he works in. Okay, right. And what happens is when you go to a new place, you can pretend that you've got all these years of experience, and you do. But when it comes to the local politics of the street, you don't know who the players are. You don't know who the power centers are. You don't know what the rules are. And you don't have all this built-in intelligence. You go into this new city and you think you're smart, but the reality is you don't know the area. You don't know the places. You don't know the neighborhoods. Like, oh yeah, dudes get jacked over here all the time. Stay out of that. Or the people that run that neighborhood, they're beefing with these dudes. So, like I'd stay out of that neighborhood for now because they're shooting each other. Or, or this other neighborhood over here, it's kind of it's not a great neighborhood, but you can get away with some stuff in there because no one's really controlling that neighborhood. He has none of that ground intelligence. He's just, I'm smart, I'm a cop, but he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about the local players and the local politics and the local rules. I mean, he could have just as easily ended up somewhere in that official police car, undercover car, and had his car shot up because he drove somewhere where they're like, who the fuck are you and why the fuck are you here? Get the fuck out of here. And he's like, I'm a fucking police chief, fuck you. And they're like, okay, it's time for the educational lesson. And they just start putting rounds in his car. Not trying to kill him, but they're like, we don't know who the fuck you are, but this is my neighborhood. Get the fuck out of here. And they just put rounds in your car. That kind of shit, it's called the educational beatdown. And, the educational, social, you call it a social violence. It's like you go somewhere where you don't know what the rules are. You don't know who the players are. And you get stomped on. Huh?
Speaking about social violence, I got to give you the numbers real quick. Chicago, Labor Day weekend, 56 shot, 8 fatalities.
Well, it is a holiday weekend, so they took some time off.
So they had the extra day.
Yeah.
But then the mayor gets on TV, and she's first words out of her mouth, nothing about the 8 people dead, nothing about the 56 shot, saying how they're welcoming the busloads of migrants that Governor Abbott is sending to her.
Yeah. I mean, this migrant thing, the buses, I have to admit that is, and this is all because of Donald Trump. And, and people that are like, Donald Trump can't be president again. We can't go through this again. It's like, well, Donald Trump is kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars movie. And all of these monk politicians are now like, I can do this. I don't have to take that. I don't have to be like Jeb Bush and bend over and fucking and be excoriated by the mainstream media and be like, because this is how the game's played. Governors now are like, fuck you. We're going to send them to New York and send them to Delaware. And then, people get all upset like, oh, Chicago? Motherfucker, you want some fucking illegals too? We'll bust them up to your way, some bitch.
That's it.
And, it's a whole, and things are going to, this isn't going to change. Politics of how politics operate, people are just going to start calling bullshit on stuff because they've seen the way, and it doesn't matter if Donald Trump's president or not.
But well, just like the New York mayor came out and said that, he's calling Governor Greg Abbott from Texas all these names. And somebody said, but wait a minute, Mayor in New York. And they played him a speech of how you're welcoming any and all illegal immigrants. Well, here's your wish. So it's like in all these other liberal cities, what's the old adage? It's fine until it happens to me.
NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Right.
And also what it really comes down to is if you're brutally honest about it, what it really comes down to is your job. It's like, okay, if the mayor of Cincinnati, who's now Aftab Puraball, who I suspect is extreme leftist, but he's hasn't really shown it too much yet. We'll see. But if Aftab Puraball, the mayor of Cincinnati, all of a sudden started getting into public spats with the governor of Florida or the governor of Texas, I, as a resident of Cincinnati, which actually technically I'm not, but if I was a resident of Cincinnati, I'd be like, motherfucker, why don't you fucking make sure the garbage is picked up on time? What? This isn't your fucking job. It's like, this isn't about you. Like, and if you think about it, like, there's so much of this where you've got people that are trying to do their job, but then you've got politicians who are inserting themselves into arguments that they have no business being involved in because it has nothing to do with their job. Like, I can make an argument that the governor of Texas busing these people around is part of his job because he's trying to handle these people. They have their capacity. Texas is a big state, but they don't have a bunch of room to store these people. And like, okay, let's start busting some of them around. We got to get rid of some of these people because they're getting flooded. And it's like that's his problem. And then it's like getting on TV and starting to argue with these other people. Like, look, if I was the mayor of New York or I was the mayor of Chicago and I was pissed off about the governor of Texas busing people into my city, you got a fucking police department. You got a transportation department. And you're like, okay, all right. Tell the cops. And every time you see a bus coming in, you know what the bus routes are. You know where Greyhound's going, and, just start pulling over the buses and be like, who the fuck are you? All right, we're going to wherever. And who are all these people? Let me see your drivers. And none of these people have ID. Legally, you're supposed to have ID in the United States. People don't quite always realize that. It's actually illegal to not technically have ID on you. People identify yourself. And that would be enough to be like, turn the bus around, head south, get the fuck out of here. You could start doing that.
Well, but Abbott, and he's calling their bluff. You wanted them. You made it on public TV that you're welcoming them. Well, here you go.
Mm-hmm. And all the smart liberal Democratic mayors, the mayor of Louisville, the mayor of Cincinnati, the mayor of I'm sure the mayor of Cleveland, they're all shutting their fucking mouths because it's like, don't aim that shit at me. You know what I mean? Like, these assholes are stupid enough.
All politics is local.
It should be. All politics should be local, Yep. We're going to get into the politics stuff. I'll tell you what, let me get into a couple things here real quick. I want to talk about just a few gun things because once we get into the politics, it's just going to go on forever. So I have a confession. So, in full disclosure, because I guess now we're internet people, I didn't shoot much really for the past 5 weeks. I went about, I'd say 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks. Dealing with the tractor, had to deal with the trip, all the negotiations, delivery, and then, we had some people come to the range, and I was able to shoot once when they were there. That literally, like, I hadn't shot. So I was at the range shooting the other day, handgun stuff, and, I haven't really dry fired or practiced in realistically of any significant amount of almost 4 weeks. And it was horrible. I mean, by my standards. I'm sure some people have been like, oh, yeah, that's great. But I was looking at my times. I was looking at my movements, looking at my stuff, and it was terrible. And, it's this idea that we've talked about. Pistol shooting skills are perishable skills. They die quickly, and it can, it's not all sweetness and light for the dudes over here, John1911. We have bad days shooting too. Shit we're not proud of. And it's like, you got to work at it, And I feel like, in a way, like I had to start over. It's like, oh, man, I'm going to have to start doing a lot more dry fire and get some practice and get back up to speed because it was awful. I mean, I was hitting everything, but I'm looking at my stuff, and I just felt like I was moving in slow motion.
Well, maybe you need a new holster.
You know what? It's funny you should mention that. Danny, do you like the smell of coffee, bacon, tobacco, or pine trees?
Yes, of course I do.
Is there anything that smells better than coffee, bacon, tobacco, or pine trees? Believe it or not, there is, and it's a fresh leather holster. If you stop by craftholsters.com, you'll open the door to safe and comfortable carry. They've got holsters for both concealed and open carry, semi-autos and revolvers, righties and lefties, and all of that at a reasonable price. Please visit craftholsters.com for more info. That is this month's sponsor of the John1911 Podcast, and we didn't plan on that. Danny just tossed me a Bose to make sure I'd get the read in, the live read for the commercial.
The same way you caught it.
Yeah. So, by the way, Craft Holsters. I haven't checked past few days, but they do have leather holsters for the Wilson EDC X9, like the 4-inch gun. It's not really a Commander; it's a their regular X9 gun. They have holsters for that. I need to see if they.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask that, or if they had one for that new double stack that you showed yesterday.
That was just the that it would. Ooh, that wouldn't fit. So Dan is referring to Wilson has released another version of the X. I've got the EDC X9L gun, which is the 5-inch X-frame double stack 9mm 1911 from Wilson, and the X9 and X9L. Those are the guns that have the grips that you can change your grips on. I have white grips on my gun. There's another version of that gun that is called the SFX solid frame. X-frame guns, and so they don't have. They're just the textures milled into the aluminum grips, so they're even the aluminum frames, so they're even thinner. Well, Wilson has released one of those with a true Commander upper, not only length, but it's a true Commander top end. It's a 4 1/4 true Commander. It's got the dual radial lugs like traditional 1911, internal extractor like a traditional 1911. It's got a bushing like a Commander bushing, like a traditional 1911. I mean, it top end is traditional 1911, where my gun is like a modern, more like a Glock. It locks like a like a modern striker gun, whereas Wilson's now doing solid frame traditional upper guns for the traditionalists. So, but that gun would not fit in the craft leather holster because the short version of my gun is a 4-inch, not a 4 1/4, and a true Commander is 4 1/4. So I don't know. I have to ask. I don't know. Maybe we can see if we can get Kraft to send us a holster. I mean, we probably should.
We'll try it.
So
yes.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I don't need one for my high point. I'm good.
Oh, stop it. Hey, look, dude, they've got holsters for revolvers. So, you know what I would be curious about? I've never seen a dedicated appendix carry leather holster. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's people listening like, oh my
leather.
God, so yeah, a leather.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they're always plastic.
Yeah, I'm just, like, I don't know, like that could be cool. Like I could maybe mess with that. Like maybe make me a 5-inch.
Well, I have a hard time being a lefty. Finding a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's because you're only 10% of the population. So, oh, by the way, speaking about the Wilson gun, so we published it on the website, and I made a comment about. I posted the Springfield has they've come out with their 2011-ish. Can't say 2011 owned by Staccato. Wilson or so the 1911s are sloshing in my head. Springfield Armory out of Illinois has decided to enter or re-enter the double stack 1911 market because there's a ton of companies making these 2011 type guns. And so Springfield has come out with a 2011. It's a Prodigy series. And the 2011s, they're stupid fat for what they are. They just, it's a frame and a magazine footprint. It's designed for 45. And people are stuffing 9mm into this thing, but they don't want to redesign the frame or the magazine, so the gun is unnecessarily large. And so I called the gun stupid fat. And some guy came in on our website, kind of all ass hurt, like, he zoned in on stupid. He's like, why is it stupid? This gun's for competition, and not every gun, not everyone can afford an Atlas or a Staccato. And he was listing off all these companies that make 2011 guns. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I wasn't clear. I'm not calling the Springfield Prodigy stupid fat. The Staccato is stupid fat. The Atlas is stupid fat. The Bull guns are stupid fat. All these 2011 guns are stupid fat. And it was like, by the way, like there's a big difference between these giant frames with these giant mags for the short little round, and you're wasting a lot of space. And so I don't think he was too happy to hear that response because I think he was a guy that was rolling in to kind of get me. I mean, so people like to play the gotcha game on the internet. Gotcha, and it was like, oh, sorry, dude. No, that's actually I wasn't calling Springfield stupid. I was calling the entire segment stupid. So
I get it.
I know. That's why I got to get you in there with your with the band hammer. So he didn't earn a band. He was fine. He just wasn't happy. So hey, I guess you remember? Ahead. Do you remember the video? Remember the gun? You remember the MAC-10 guns from the 80s?
Yes.
Remember those? Like
I sure do.
And so there's the MAC-10, MAC-11, and so we have a semi-auto one of those. And I call it a MAC-10, but it's not. It's a semi-auto. And we done a video test on it a month or so ago, like with the new video team, and it's fine. Like it turns out we never shot the gun. Well, this week I was like, oh man, that gun's on the cleaning table. I got to break this thing down and clean it. And I opened it up, and turns out there's a buffer in the back of the gun, and I'm like, oh no, like some 30-year-old buffers in this thing. And sure enough, as soon as I, like it just crumbled, and all this dried out rubber just collapsed all over the cleaning table. And I was like, well, looks like we're gonna have to buy a buffer, because that was a gun that we had purchased, and we had never even fired it or even broke it down.
It dry rotted, huh?
Yeah, all those kind of buffers dry rot. So we're gonna have to get a MAC-10 buffer, and
good luck, maybe.
Yeah, actually, I did some looking, and there's companies that make buffers for guns, and I guess it's so easy now to make that kind of stuff with some of the small mills, because they're milling them. They're not using molds, I don't believe. And,
I wonder if you could 3D print one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it's got to be pliable, but these could be 3D printed, but there's companies on Gunbroker, and there's companies on eBay that have them. I mean, they're out there. Like, so
that's why I asked it. Come on, say, Danny, you're paying attention.
You're paying attention. You got it. So, we got to get a buffer for a MAC-10, and actually, I still have to get the spring for the Benelli B76 too. So, because that's not really working that well. So, it's undersprung because it's old. All right. Well, we haven't. I guess I should. This deserves to be mentioned, but I'm not. I'm not up on it because I've been too busy.
Well, I was a little busy last week myself.
Yes, you were, unfortunately, and that's sad news. But I guess the ATF. I guess it's leaked. The ATF is going to start coming after pistol braces. And
really,
yeah, they're coming after. It looks like they have a plan for an amnesty period. So they basically, I don't know if they're coming after pistol ARs and AKs in particular, or whether they're just coming after pistol AR and AKs that have pistol braces on them. And they basically want to make them short barrel rifles, and they got to get on the registry.
But I actually know a guy with bad arms that can't shoot without one. I mean, legit. So why would they come after that?
Because they've sold 40 million of these things, and 40 million people don't.
There's a lot of bad arms out there, man.
They had a lot of bad arms. There's a lot of bad arms out there. Yeah. Unfortunately, they're using them as. I'm not saying unfortunately. They're using, as far as the ATF is concerned, they're using them as stocks. Look, we've never owned a pistol brace in the John1911 Armory. Not because, like, I'm against them, but, like where I used to work, it was a policy. We stayed away from them. It was like, fuck with those things. Like, if they're short and it's probably not going to be legal and whatever. And, and I never dicked with them. It's like, we'll just SBR the stuff. And so, a couple years after I had left, a bunch of those guys, they all started shooting pistol braced freaking rifles. And it's like, oh man, this is pretty legit. It's like, oh really? Okay. So, now we're doing pistol braces, these guys are like, they're cops or former cops. And it's like, okay, and it's just going to be interesting to see, kind of how this plays out. I don't know, I think this has the potential to be a huge fight. I haven't looked into it, but, technically the ATF is kind of declaring these things as, in layman's terms, machine guns. And they're not machine guns, but they're putting them on the same machine gun registry, the NFA registry, as all the other.
But that might not pass muster, with court dealings. They could declare anything they want, but the legality of it might not hold up.
Yeah, there's there's a lawsuit right now coming up before the Supreme Court. Is it it's not the Exxon, that's the precedent. It's EPA versus, the EPA does this bullshit. The same thing the ATF does. The EPA basically just goes, like the EPA could very easily come to the John 1911 range. We have storm creeks on our property. And they could literally be like, federal waterway. You can't do this or that. And it's like, holy fuck, like this isn't a federal fucking water. Well, they could, they could declare that. Like they could come in, like there's ponds next door. They could, like the government, like I haven't heard this in every place, but I've heard, like we had thought about the idea of maybe setting up a cistern at the rain barrels at the John 1911 range. We've got roofs and we've got things. It's like, well, we got gutters, just capture the water and put it in barrels so we could use the barrels, to hose off equipment or something. And it's like, depending on where you're at, the government's like, you don't own the rainwater. It belongs to the government. And I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, when did that happen? And it's that kind of stuff that the EPA's in trouble for. And whatever the Supreme Court decides, that's going to definitely affect the ATF, because the ATF is arbitrarily changing rules, and they're not actually passing the laws in Congress. And in particular, there's a trigger. Danny, have you heard of the forced reset trigger, the FRT 15, whatever it's called? It's kind of been low key bubbling up, but hasn't exploded yet. Have you heard about
I've
this?
heard something about it, but I can't recall.
So what it is, like the way the law is written for machine guns, this is literally how it's written in statute, is one pull of the trigger results in one round being fired. And so if one pull of the trigger results in multiple rounds being fired, more than one round, by definition, that is a machine gun. That's
like AKA bump stock. No,
well, that's a whole
different thing. Right?
That's a whole different thing. So, well, kind of, not really. Well, what's happened is there's companies that have come out with there's binary triggers, and then there's forced reset triggers, and those are two completely different things. So, a forced reset trigger is you pull the trigger, the gun cycles, and then the trigger. The bolts moving, there's stuff moving in the gun, there's recoil action, and it could be gas or whatever it is. And then, as it closes and cycles and closes, the trigger gets reset forward. And so there's a limit as far as there's a mechanical limitation as to how quickly a gun can fire based off of how quickly the gun can be ready to fire again. Make sense?
Yes.
Like there's a delay there. Like most people don't understand this. Mechanically speaking, this is mechanically speaking, a revolver can always be made to fire faster than a semi-auto because a revolver, the chamber and the firing mechanism is all connected. There's no dwell time. There's no dwell time of the action cycling. That is
or gas is escaping that you have to wait for.
Well, yeah, you have to wait for this stuff. Whereas, if you could take a machine, if you were the bionic man and you were to be able to pull that trigger as fast as you can, that revolver will fire as fast as you can pull that trigger. You can't outrun the trigger as long as you reset it all the way. That's why you see Jerry Michalik, the 6 reload 2.99 seconds. You're like, holy shit, he fired 12 rounds in 2.99 seconds from a revolver. You're like, holy shit balls. Well, the forced reset trigger for semi-automatics, what it does is it speeds up the trigger reset time to when the trigger can, be ready to fire again. So if you can fire a little faster, the trigger could theoretically be faster. And it's one pull of the trigger, one round. And there's some people that can apparently run these things. They look like machine guns. And it's like the ATF is trying to say these are machine guns. And they're coming around wanting people to surrender them. And, it's like, Well, they're not machine guns because that's not the way the law is written. Like, the law is the law, the letter of the law. Well, the ATF, their argument's going to be the spirit of the law says we can regulate machine guns. And, so they're coming after these. And then there's another type of trigger called the binary trigger. Binary means two, right? And so what binary triggers really as a practical matter are not good ideas. I'm not saying from the culture war or from fighting the ATF perspective. I'm just saying from a user liability perspective. And what a binary trigger does, Danny, is you pull the trigger, the gun fires. You release the trigger to reset it, gun fires again.
Really? I never knew such a thing. Pull in one round, let out one round. One round, let out one round.
Mm-hmm. So so like you, in a way, you can double the rounds you're firing, but it's still one pull of the trigger. And the problem with the forced reset trigger is there is a little bit of a trick to shooting it to make it go fast. The binary trigger, I think it's easier to make it go fast, but the problem with the binary trigger is, and I think there might be an escape mechanism built into some of these so you can bypass it. But like, let's say you fire a round, and then between the firing that first round and releasing the trigger, you decide you need to stop shooting. Like, oh fuck, it's over. Well, how do you, if you come off that trigger, that second round's going to fire. And so, that's a problem. And so, from a practical standpoint, unless you're trying to like do area suppression with some kind of gun, the binary trigger, philosophically, there's problems with it from a marksmanship and controllability, accountability perspective. And I think there might be, like, if you stop on the reset, if you stop on the back, I think there might be a way to push a button and bypass it. I think there's an escape mechanism on some of these mechanically, but all this bullshit talk, what's happening is between these things and these pistol braces is there's an argument to be made, and it's a pretty good argument that the ATF is, or the ATF too, but the NFA, the National Firearms Act, the Machine Gun Registry, and all of the items on the end, it's a broken system. And you could even make an argument that regulating the NFA as a whole is unconstitutional. Like, you could make an argument that that Roe versus Wade wasn't constitutional because Congress didn't pass a law and there's nothing in the Constitution that specifically says anything about abortion. And so, the conservative justices, even though they personally are probably anti-abortion, the legal constitutional argument for striking down the Roe decision is it's unconstitutional in the idea of, look, if you want to enable abortions, go fucking pass the law, motherfucker. And you'll pass them, and that's what's happening. And like, I think if and no one, the left won't talk about this. If a state passes a law that legalizes abortion and it worked its way all the way before the Supreme Court, at least on the argument that this Bruin decision was decided, Thomas and Alito would be like, yeah, this is constitutional because you wrote a bill, the electors voted, the representatives wrote a bill, they passed the bill, the governor signed it, it's law, it's the law of the state, it's constitutional. And no one wants to talk about that. That's the fundamental problem with that. Well, the weaknesses with the NFA are, you could make an argument that the NFA is unconstitutional on its face because, shall not be infringed. There's a famous case, Danny, I don't know if you know this. There's a famous gun case called Miller. And Miller happened, I think, in the late 30s or early 40s. So the National Firearms Act, 1934 is when that was passed. That's when the modern machine gun rule structure was created. Okay? And the NFA is suppressors, machine guns, explosives, weapons greater than 50 caliber centerfire, and all these. That's where they created the modern system. So there was a guy that was arrested named Miller. and I think it was in the late 30s or early 40s, because he had a short-barreled shotgun that he didn't register. And so he was charged for an NFA violation, which is a serious violation. And also back then it was inexpensive. Like $200 was a lot of money in the 30s or the 40s, right? So Miller appeals his conviction for violating the NFA. And he's like, this is bullshit. It's like, like this gun was fucking legal before, and now you're saying it's not legal, and I didn't, and I have to do all this. Well, what ends up happening is it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And what they decide is, check this out. So the Second Amendment, it says off the top, it's it's like the right, the
shall not be infringed.
Well, but the preamble to it is, so the people can, for the protection of themselves in the state. I should just read it, but basically it says militia, right? So they can defend themselves with a militia, and so the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. So basically, it talks about that they can defend themselves. They're the common militia, the common defense, right? That's if you look at the whole of the Second Amendment, it does talk about militia, but it is an individual right. So the left tries to say, well, it's for the army, it doesn't count for individuals, and the argument's been no, every other right in this Bill of Rights is for individuals, the Second Amendment's for individuals, and the militia is the common defense, the common people. The militia isn't the army, the standing army. The militia is every military-aged male, traditionally from age 14 or 15 to 60, okay? Like the common citizenry, to keep and bear arms, to defend themselves, defend their homes, defend their town, they're robbing the bank, get the posse up. Like this is where it all comes from. What's interesting about the Miller case, guy comes up, it's a shotgun. He comes up, and he's before the Supreme Court. He actually ended up, he was killed before the decision came down, which is unfortunate. But I don't know if he was a good person or not. But I don't know what happened with that. But the court decided that his complaint, he didn't have standing to challenge the NFA, the constitutionality of the NFA, because a shotgun is not a martial weapon. The Supreme Court decided, they looked at all these shotguns, or they looked at all the weapons, that modern military weapons, and nowhere in their decision on the common accepted table of equipment was a shotgun considered a military weapon. And so they're like, it's not a military weapon, so it doesn't fall under the militia, and so it doesn't fall under the NFA, and so your conviction stands because this doesn't fall under it. It's not a martial weapon. And it's like, that's gotten lost to history too, because you could make an argument. It's like, okay, well then should short barrel shotguns be regulated at all in the NFA? But then, okay, the Miller case is also making the argument that these are weapons of war, and civilians are allowed to have them because this is what it's all about, weapons of war. It's not about hunting deer. Like but history has kind of forgotten the Miller case. So like, I don't know if the NFA's ever been officially challenged or not, and constitutionally, but it'd be real interesting if it was challenged now. And I've talked about this too. The NFA, as it's been functioning the past decade, has been terrible because it can take 12, 14, 16, 18 months to get your shit, and that's not reasonable under the Constitution. And so the ATF has been rushing to make these electronic applications and do online forms, because they realize that if this gets far enough and it gets challenged, the NFA could be ruled unconstitutional just on process grounds, due process, because it's unreasonable.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. You have the constitutional right to have a firearm, to defend yourself and be a member of society. According to Miller, martial weapons, but it takes 18 months to exercise your rights. Name another right. It takes 18 months to, be able to say that, I think Joe Biden's a fucktard. I think Joe Biden's a fucktard. But I don't have to wait 18 months to get permission from the government to say that because I have First Amendment rights.
Yeah. Interesting. I never knew that Miller case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people don't. It's super interesting. So anyway, they're coming after. They just arbitrarily went against bump stocks, and now they're coming after forced reset triggers, and they're coming after
arm braces,
pistol braces. So I mean, I don't know.
Jesus.
Yeah. Hey, you want to hear some cool news?
Please.
So you ever seen Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Do you like Han Solo? Remember Han Solo, right?
Yeah.
Let's get out of here, kid. He was the I don't know, what would you call Han Solo? I don't know. Was he like the Fonzie of Star Wars? I'm trying to think something. Come on, Danny, you watched TV back in the 70s.
I was the human remote. Get up and change the channel, kid.
Get up, change the channel, boy.
Harrison Ford.
And that gun, his gun looked different than everybody else's gun. He had a pistol, and his gun had a scope on it, and it had a magazine coming out. That's a real gun. That's actually a C90, a broom handle C96. We have one, like the real gun, and they just put a bunch of shit on the gun to make it look to prop it. But it's actually a real gun. I don't know if it fires, but that gun from that movie sold at Rock Island Auction Company for $1 million, I think, last week. Someone paid $1 million for a C96 I don't even think works.
Somebody is a Star Wars fanatic, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but the thing is, it's a gun that has to be transferred as a gun. There are dudes out there that take C96s. They weld a bunch of shit to them to make it look like Han Solo's gun, but they also leave it functioning. So you can actually shoot 9mm. I've seen some videos of it. I thought that, like C96s aren't, they're not super valuable, but they're not like everyday guns. And so I don't know, like if I ever ran across a totally assed up C96 as a project gun, I would probably spend many thousands of dollars in 2 to 3 years to having it built into a functioning Han Solo gun. Why not? It'd be cool, right?
Yes, Obi.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ouch. Okay, let's talk about politics. We've been going for a while. Just hit me with it.
Oh no, nothing's going on. I do have a question for you, which I find, it's not really ironic. I mean, anymore with the mainstream media, who is the leaker in the Department of Justice that is letting out more and more of the stuff that they got from Mar-a-Lago? I mean, come on. Now they're talking about nuclear records of foreign countries, this or that. I mean, you just happen to have that leaked to the press. There's a plant in there. There's got to be.
I mean, it's being leaked from the Department of Justice.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's
and they're worried about, but what's ironic, let me finish my point. They're all worried about all the security, but yet they're leaking out the details.
Yeah, it's so super secret. It's so super secret that they can still leak it.
Right. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah. Well, what's even more ironic is you're seeing a lot of people today make the argument that Trump requesting a special master and the judge granting a special master is bullshit because of reasons. On the same newspaper where there's an article showing shit leaked from the Department of Justice that they took out of Trump's house. And it's like, that's what, literally, like, it's on the same page. Special master is bullshit for Trump. Next article, Trump had documents on foreign nations' nuclear arsenal, and it's like assholes. It's like McFly.
Well, I got a better McFly moment than that. On MSNBC today, they had some twit. That's all I'll say. And she said everything that was this. Now listen to how I'm going to phrase this. Everything that was in Hillary's emails, servers, and everything that was hammered doesn't compare to what Trump had at Mar-a-Lago. You moron! How do you know what was on those servers if they were hammered and bleach bit?
Dun dun dun!
It's like, and then you have all the lemmings shaking their head agreeing with this idiot. It's like, can't anybody ask the basic question? How do you know what was on there?
Well, what's interesting is, and the real story is, again, and even the right isn't actually doing this story. Once again, we are in a situation where the Clintons and their behavior, whether it's Bill or Hillary, in the last decade or longer, it's been Hillary, her behavior is coming back to bite everybody in the ass. And it's like, I mean, people could literally wait till there's an article that comes out that like, yes, Hillary, you're a fucking bitch, from a Democrat. Yes, Hillary, you did this. Yes, Hillary, now we can't get Trump because you're a fucking idiot.
That's right. Goose and gander theory 101.
Mm-hmm. And it's like eventually, there's going to come, it's like the stages of denial, like anger, depression, whatever. And they're going to get to the point where they're going to be like, Hillary fucked up everything because now we can't stop Trump. That's coming. That's coming.
Well, and you're right. And the narrative is Hillary's wasn't a crime and it wasn't as bad as what Trump's doing. Moron.
Well, hold on. And I want to make a point here. I'm sure there's liberals that listen to our podcast because I occasionally hear from you. And not that I'm not an illiberal. There's some shit that I'm okay with. But, if you're sitting there and you're like, dude, give me a fucking break on Hillary Clinton. I'm tired of hearing about Hillary Clinton's emails. Well, everybody's tired of hearing about Hillary Clinton's emails. But don't forget this fact. The left turned on Ruth Bader Ginsburg for not giving up the seat. And they blamed Ruth, sainted Ruth, for basically overturning Roe and some of this other stuff. If they'll turn on Ruth, dude, they'll burn Hillary Clinton at the goddamn stake. I mean, it's like, Hillary Clinton's got to be very careful here. Because,
shit's going to come out. Just say it.
She literally is on the political side of the aisle that likes to blame everybody else for their problems. And it's like, if they can't get Trump and it's because of her emails, she better watch out. Because the worm's going to turn on her. I mean, like, they kind of shut it down. They try to protect old Ruth. Even some of the TV interviews when Ruth was talking about she didn't like the kneeling for the flag stuff. They hid all that. But, they turned on Ruth when Roe happened. They're going to turn on Hillary. They can literally make the argument the only reason Donald Trump became president is because Hillary Clinton was a uniquely horrible candidate historically for president. You can make an argument she was the first viable female presidential candidate for president, but you can also make the argument that she's so terrible and so craven and so damaged and so sociopathic that her running enabled Donald Trump to win.
Speaking about the president, did you see his Biden the other day Satan speech with the red curtain and the flames on the side and the half moon and everything?
The best.
It was a political fundraiser. It's like, are you kidding me?
With Marines in the background.
Yeah, exactly. it's like oh
It's a
my
presidential
gosh,
speech, but turns out it's not a presidential speech. It was a political
it was a
speech.
hate speech.
It's a hate speech, and it's like, oh, did you see? Was it MSNBC? Was it NBC? One of the news channels, apparently, I got to watch it, but one of the news channels, when they actually broadcast the speech, they adjusted the tint on the video
On the curtains.
on the curtain. They adjusted the red so it looked more pink than red. And have you
Really?
seen? Yeah, so it didn't look so demonic. It looked more pink, and it was like, fucking Christ, good Lord! It's like, I mean,
Satan speech. That's what I'm calling it. Pure
and,
hate.
Well, and again, it's like I've seen jokes like comparing him to the guy from the art. Who's the news reporter, the anchor guy, Anchorman? Like they're like he'll literally read anything you put in the teleprompter. And like they're like, okay, go up there, Joe, and he will literally read anything. Shahsbot 47. I like what's the frequency? Right. He'll just read anything, and he reads this crazy thing. Doesn't seem to have a problem with it because I don't even know if he's totally in charge. And then the very next day, he's like, no, I don't know. Republicans aren't a threat because it's like today it's like read this. Yeah, Republicans are fine. They're good people in the Republican Party. I didn't say that. It's
no, yeah, and 10 million people viewed it.
You look at that speech and you got to ask yourself, like, number one, like, okay, this is, I've talked about this, the raid on Mar-a-Lago. It's like if, they went to tap Donald Trump's phones and Barack Obama was president. There comes a point when it doesn't matter how high up in the Justice Department it goes. Somebody's like, I ain't fucking doing this until we talk to somebody higher up. And it went over to the West Wing and went over to the White House. And it's like, okay, because ultimately Barack Obama would sit there like, this is a political decision. And if this blows back on me, Barack Obama had to sit there and be like, you're going to do what? What's your justification? And part of Barack Obama's calculus is, all right, if this goes bad or this goes sideways for us, am I going to go down in history as the worst president in the history of the country in the final months of my presidency because these fucktards in the Justice Department made me look like a fucking criminal? And, that's why he had to be informed. Now you're telling me that Joe Biden wasn't informed of this because there's political ramifications, which are obvious now, of the raid. And then it's like, okay, if Joe Biden wasn't informed, was anybody in the White House informed? And it's like, were they, or somebody had to have known in the West Wing. I don't know who it was. What did you know? When did you know it? But it's like, okay, Joe Biden's out of the loop. And you look at this speech, the Satan speech, and you're like, Joe Biden had no part of this. He didn't, other than showing up. I don't even think Joe Biden knew what this was going to look like. They may be like, hey, we're going to have Marines there. He's like, oh, yeah, Marines. I love my Marines. And, he gets up there and reads a speech. Like, but somebody set that stage up. Somebody set the lighting up. Somebody wrote, and it's like the people in the West Wing thought this was a good idea. Whether Joe Biden knew this was going to happen or not happen, somebody over there looked at this and said, this looks good to me. And it's like, and it's like, nobody's asking this question. Nobody's asking this question. Fox News doesn't ask it. Fox News doesn't ask about, like who knew the. It's like, I don't think Joe Biden's really in charge here. Like, I think he is kind of.
I don't think he's in charge of his own faculties.
No, I mean, I'm being serious. It's like, okay, it's like, all right, just read crazy bullshit. And, the people that are in the West Wing, they're so inbred. Again, going back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama had been president for almost 8 years at this point. They're going to tap the phones. There does come a scenario where presidents kind of get into a bubble. You know what I mean? Like, they do because they're insulated from the common man. They only know what people tell them, or maybe people they can call directly if they still have friends from their previous life. But in many ways, a president is not living in the same world that he or she was living in before they were president. But still Barack Obama has his faculties enough to be like, is this crazy? We can really do this? Like, I wonder if Barack Obama put limitations like, okay, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do this, but you can't do that. But the Biden administration, even though, if the West Wing staff is so crazy, commie, leftist bonkers, but there's nobody at the top to go, yo, I'm the president, and I ain't going to eat this one if this goes sideways, so we're going to tone this one back. That's where you can tell Biden's not actually in charge, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's and of course the mainstream media is narrative is how the election's going to tighten up. There's not going to be the red wave. Yeah, there are. They don't get it. They don't get it. It's just like they're trying to control people's minds, and it's not working. And my opinion is all this and going after Trump, you're only solidifying Trump's base more.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, as far as the red wave, you and I have talked about this. I don't know if we agree on it. I mean, I think the polls have tightened. I don't think there's any debate, and there's problems.
But then again, you have to remember they're polling Democrats. They're not polling. Their polls are very selective. You
can have a poll. You can have a push poll. You can, and also look, the polls have tightened. There's no two ways about it. But also, you can make the argument too for your side of the argument, and against me saying the polls have tightened, is the campaigns don't really start till after Labor Day.
Right.
I mean, everybody goes away for the summer, and the campaigns don't start till after Labor Day. And so, people start paying attention. The kids are back in school. Summer vacation's over. That's when the ad spends really start. But there's, look, we're not going to go in a deep dive on this, but there is a problem with money in the Republican Party. There's multiple problems here, and some of the candidates aren't as good quality as they could be. My opinions on Dr. Oz and my opinions on J.D. Vance in Ohio are well known. I'm not big fans. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. I'd rather have other people.
But that's not who we got on the ballot.
That's not who we got on the ballot. So, okay, here's the argument. So Peter Thiel, one of the arguments that Mitch McConnell's having, because he's the leader of the Senate, is he's the minority leader. So he's got access to money to give the different candidates in different races because he wants to try to regain a majority. And what's happened is Peter Thiel came in, and Peter Thiel backed candidates that were not necessarily
under McConnell's liking.
Yeah, they were under McConnell's liking. And, that's not all necessarily a good thing because, I don't care for J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance isn't a MAGA guy. J.D. Vance, I think, is a phony carpetbagger. But whatevs. Then Peter Thiel came in and, gave money to these dudes from the primaries. Now Peter Thiel suddenly is like, well, they're in a general. I'm not going to give them any money. And McConnell's like, whoa here, motherfucker. You put these fucking guys in. Now, a lot of the major donors, they're sitting on the sidelines because it's not the candidates they were supporting, and they don't know what to think of some of these wishy-washy people. And now you're telling me that I have to spend my limited funds on these candidates that you got to win the primaries, but now I got to pay to try to defend seats that should be safe. Like Ohio should be a safe seat. And it's like, if it's a Republican, and it's like, McConnell's like, you motherfucker. He's like, you fucking got him elected. You fucking paid for him. And why is that? Why is McConnell hurt? Why doesn't McConnell have enough money for the Senate candidates?
Because it wasn't given to him.
Well, it went somewhere.
Well,
I told
you my theory on this.
Oh no, wait,
McConnell doesn't want these people.
Well, that's not necessarily true. McConnell is not going to give up control of the Senate. He has his picks. Like, look, I am not happy with J.D. Vance, but I'm going to vote for J.D. Vance. I'm not happy with Mike DeWine as governor of Ohio, but I'm going to vote for him because I'm not going to vote for a Democrat. So, that the political argument is, people always come home to the party when it's time to vote. The reason McConnell and a lot of these people are hurting for money is Donald Trump. Donald Trump sucked up a lot of small donor money. People are still giving him money. I gave him money. And Donald Trump, he's gone through and he's endorsed candidates. But the last I checked, this could have changed. I haven't checked this since September 7th. He hasn't given them any money from his campaign coffers. Like, okay, here's $10 million to J.D. Vance. Here's $10 million for Dr. Oz to run campaign ads. It's just, Donald Trump, he only seems to be like, I endorse you, I'm Donald Trump. And it's like, well, you should give him some money. And like, why am I talking about Donald Trump's money? Donald Trump's campaign bank right now is sitting on $110 million. And
I think Trump will let loose with some money.
He better.
It's because you have to realize, you just coined the phrase, it's all after Labor Day. And
I hope so.
I think you're going to see money coming out now. I think you're going to see a lot of people coming out.
You know what? I think you could make those arguments before Donald Trump, but right now a lot of people are nervous. And Donald Trump and campaign money is a legitimate criticism of Trump within the Republican Party, because they're like,
I disagree with you. I disagree. I think Trump is becoming more powerful with all this going against him.
You can't disagree with the facts. You can hope that it changes, and I hope it changes. But these are facts. This is not an opinion. This is what's happened. And people are worried, is Donald Trump going to sit on all this money to run for office in 2 years and not help candidates to get candidates elected to help the Republican Party and get control of the Senate? And right now, people are scared that Donald Trump is so selfish that he's not going to do it.
I don't think so.
He hasn't done it yet.
I think he's going to let loose with the money, and I also think that a lot of this is trying to be narrative controlled by the mainstream media. I really do. It's just like people are saying that people, don't want Biden to come. Well, some don't, but overall, Trump, his record speaks for itself of whom he's endorsed and who has won. They're going to want Trump there when it gets down to it. You'll see.
Okay, so I'm about to totally box you in the ears here.
Well, you go right ahead. I'm ready.
You're talking about Trump. It's all about Trump, right? Trump, and I didn't disagree with you. Trump is a phenomenon. I give Donald Trump money. Okay, I get it. I support Trump. I voted for him twice. I give him money. Most people don't give him money. They say that most people that say they support Donald Trump have never given him a penny. I'm just saying. So don't come at me and act like that I don't support Trump. Okay. Now, with that being said, your narrative comment. Let's talk about Ohio. The Ohio Republican Party, chairmen of state Republican the state Republican Party, chairmen of county Republican parties around Ohio are asking the same questions. Where is J.D. Vance? Where are his commercials? What's his campaign schedule? Where is he making appearances? Oh, he takes weekends off? Really? Okay, where's his commercials? Well, we're not just, and it's like Tim Ryan is running some pretty vicious commercials against Vance. And you can't find Vance right now with a search warrant. And people, Republican Party, this is not reported on CNN, this is not reported on Fox News, but there are Republicans like me in Ohio that are getting very nervous that J.D. Vance is going to blow this thing.
It's also only 2 days after Labor Day. He's probably filming commercials as we speak to counter Murphy's commercials and
Ryan's
sorry, wrong state. And
okay,
you're gonna see a push.
Cool story,
just like you're
bro.
Gonna see.
Cool story, bro. What happens every summer? Every summer, every county has a county fair.
Correct.
Okay, and And in Catholic districts, every summer, every Catholic parish typically has parish fairs, festivals.
Right, a fun fest or something.
Yeah, they have festivals. You're running for statewide race in Ohio. It's not like you got to spend a bunch of money and fly to Bali or Fiji first class. You get in a car with your wife, or you leave your wife and kids at home, and you get your campaign aid and your policy aid, and you get a flunky, and you rent a Suburban, and you drive from festival to festival. Every weekend you're somewhere, shaking hands, giving a speech, even
marching in parades.
And you know what? You literally, I don't even know if J.D. Vance lives in Ohio right now. I've looked up J.D. Vance's office in Ohio, and it's basically a mail drop. Because then it's like, well, he's been taking weekends off. And it's just like, and here's McConnell's problem. This is McConnell's concern. And this has nothing to do with Trump. McConnell is afraid that the Republican Party is going to fuck this up for the Senate the way they did in 2010. There were a bunch of candidates that got nominated. Look, I supported a lot of them. I believed in it. But I have to give McConnell his due. There were a lot of Republican candidates that were selected or nominated to run in the generals to win seats in the Senate in 2010, and it was a fucking disaster. The Witch? Do you remember The Witch?
Oh, yeah.
I am not a witch. If you are to the point where you're having to get on media and say, I am not a witch, you're losing the narrative. And McConnell's looking at some of these states, and he's looking at Peter Thiel, and he's looking at Trump, and he's looking at these numbers, and you could say, okay, yeah, the polling numbers are this, and they're push polls and whatever, and it's not Labor Day, but there's internal polling too. There's internal polling numbers that parties run. And he's looking at this, and he's like, this is supposed to be a red wave, and I look like I'm surrounded by fucking clowns. And, it's like everyone's talking about how the Republicans are going to take control of the Senate. You're not going to take control of shit because that's assuming you win Ohio. Because that's a safe seat. Well, not anymore, because apparently the person running for the Senate seat in Ohio is apparently he's off with Fat Leonard. You can't find the guy. And it's like, if you actually want Donald Trump to win, if you want Donald Trump to be president, if you want Donald Trump to actually, if he becomes president again, to do the things you want him to do and not be constantly investigated by the House and the Senate, you better give him the House and the Senate.
I agree. I agree with that. I still say, and I'm sticking to my guns, there will be a 51 Republican over 49 majority by the Republicans when all said is done.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean,
I'm pretty good at calling them.
I mean, at the beginning of the summer, before in April, it was 53.
I'm thinking 51.
Yeah.
If I get 52, it'll be just extra gravy on the taters.
But in April, you were saying, "Oh, dude, it's going to be 53." So here's the thing: don't come on this. Don't come on this podcast. Don't come on this podcast and say 51 and act like that's good news. Everything's fine.
No, it's not.
Everything's
not good
fine. When in the spring it was 53.
I would much rather have a 53 polarity, but I'm iffy on Pennsylvania at this point.
Oh God, yeah. I'm so sick of Pennsylvania. I've said it for years. I'm surprised I don't get hate mail from Pennsylvania because I even tell the story. I don't know how many years I've gone to bed. When Donald Trump won, I didn't stay up to watch him win. I literally was like, oh. Okay, now we got to wait for Pennsylvania to come in, and I'm literally like, motherfucker, I've been waiting for fucking Pennsylvania to come in since 1988. And I'm like, I'm not staying up for this. Good night. I'll just see everybody in the morning. And because with Pennsylvania, it's so corrupt and so crooked that if you're not up by 5 points in Pennsylvania, they can steal it from you.
Oh yeah.
And like so okay, so going back to our conversation about Oz, you know, like it's not going well. I mean, it's the only thing that seems to be going in his favor is the dude in Pennsylvania apparently had a stroke.
Yeah, he can't talk or walk or
something,
like
and it's like, well, I think he can walk, but it's like, you know, I mean, he's a formidable candidate, and whatever the Furman, I can't remember his name, but you know, it's like, I mean, if he's ahead in the polls and he's not in the head of the polls by at least 5 points, he's not going to win because they can steal it.
Right. Well, I said 53 earlier in the year, and I'm still hoping to stick with that. But I'm thinking 52 if we lose Pennsylvania, because I really believe we're going to pick up Nevada.
I haven't looked at Nevada. We'll have to see. So.
Well, are you chief political correspondent?
No, I'm not. So.
All right, then. You stick to guns, I'll stick to politics.
Yes, sir. That's what I like to hear. That's why I brought you on board. Yeah, Danny gets to tell me what to say. So let's go ahead and do the police blotter and get out, because we've been going for a while. We didn't want to do a 2-hour podcast.
Are we at 2 hours?
No, we're we're over 100 minutes right now. So here's a police blotter. And so there's going to be one really salacious one in it. So the first one is, you heard the story of the CFO of Bed Bath & Beyond that jumped out of the high-rise tower in New York? Yeah.
No, I did not.
So the CFO of Bed Bath & Beyond, he used to work at P&G here in Cincinnati, apparently. Apparently my tax guy was aware that he existed. You know, part of me's like, you weren't friends, were you? Because apparently he's been accused of pump and dump, like pumping up the Bed Bath & Beyond stock, and then he sold a bunch of it, and then it crashed back down to $6 or
and they just announced they're closing 150 stores.
Mm-hmm. And he jumped. That's because they announced it. And he jumped out of, you know, he was probably going to be indicted or something. 18th story, and I think he just didn't even say bye to his wife. He just jumped out the building, and it's like, ooh, that's nasty. And the Jenga building is kind of weird shaped. He probably hit some stuff on the way down. It's like, that's not good. And then I'm going to save the most salacious one for last. So did you hear about the 2 guys in Canada that shot dead 10 people and wounded 15 more people? The 2 brothers?
It was a knife. Knife.
Oh, that's right. It was a knife. It wasn't. I bet it was an assault knife. You know what? I bet it was an assault knife under the Miller decision. So if the knife had been attached to a shotgun, would it not be if it's not considered a bayonet if a shotgun is a military weapon?
No, because it has a scabbard.
Yeah, okay. Well, it has a scabbard and a pointy thing on the end. So yeah. So, you know, like, how does 2 dudes stab 25 people and get away with it? And look,
because in Canada you can't carry.
Well, in Canada they were getting worse and worse and worse with their gun laws up there. But you know, there was actually not that long ago, there was talk that Canada was going to break apart. They were so divided up there, like within 20 years, there was talk they might break apart, and like maybe the Western Canada would break away from the French-speaking Canada, and also on the east, and then, you know, a lot of people up there in the Western Canada make the argument we're more like Americans, and maybe America would actually expand. We would, you know, make them, you know, ask them to become states, and like that was a real thing. So my point in saying all that is, it's like, you know, Canada isn't like this unified, great, perfect, utopian place. They were literally talking about breaking up the country, like actually having a vote on it within my lifetime, most of your lifetimes, which you didn't hear in the news. And you know, the reality is a knife favors young, physically adept people. You know, as I'm 50 now, I'm in my 50s, I would not want to get into a knife fight with an 18-year-old.
Just shoot him.
What's the phrase? God created man, Sam Colt made him equal.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you know, I know the knife guys are like, oh, you know, I can win with a gun. You know, I can beat a guy with a gun. I get it. I understand the argument, and it's true. But just on principle, you know, an 80-year-old woman standing in her house and a guy comes through the door with a knife, she can literally be like, Sam Colt says hello, boom, 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 and at least put the hurt on him. But, young dudes with knives, you got no gun, you're way behind the curve. So
yes,
anyway,
you are.
The last police blotter, which is the most interesting one. Did you see the carnival ride in India, Danny?
Yes, I sent that to you.
Yes. Oh my God. So it's called.
And they bounced.
Oh my God! It's called a drop tower, and it's like it's a spinning wheel thing. I'm trying to describe it for the listeners. It's a spinning wheel thing that goes up in the air, and it's like a giant
at least
disc.
200 feet.
Yeah, and I guess it lost hydraulics or cables. I don't even know how it runs. But the thing, it just plunged straight down the axis. And when it landed at the base, people literally bounced like dead cats. And it was...
They did.
Oh, it was terrible. And it's
it was. The only thing more terrible than that is, do you know what they do with tree poop?
What?
Do you know what they do with tree poop?
They being Indians?
Anybody.
With tree poop. I don't know what tree poop is, but okay.
They make number 2 pencils.
Holy fuck. I get the emails. And that wraps up episode 270 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links of anything we discussed, please go to the website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good day.
And bye-bye. I'm going to get a hot dog.